All right, folks, welcome back. We have this user interface now, which is capable of telling us when there is a validation error. But we have this button down here that is doing nothing, and not only does nothing when we click it, but also doesn't present the idea that it's been disabled when we have invalid values. So we want to take care of that today. We want to do a couple things. One, we want to have it disable itself if there are invalid values on the form. And secondly, we want some kind of input to the user that the button has been clicked. And so to get started, I'm going to go to widgets and I'm going to go to button, which is where we put the logic to create this container. A lot of it is a switch to set the button color and style. And then down here we have a container with some padding, and that is our button. So let's start with getting some movement on the button. I think what might cue the user that they have clicked it is to have it move a little bit. So I'm thinking it will move just straight down. And then also we can suck in the shadow a little bit just to give kind of an illusion that the button was up higher and it's now down lower, and the light source has, adjusted and the shadow has pulled in a little bit. But we don't necessarily want the rest of the user interface to slide around. We just want the button to move. And so we can do that by working with the existing padding that we have. If we take a look at the debug paint, we can see we've built ourselves quite a bit of padding in here. So what I think we'll do is add padding to the top, which will move it down. But then, so we don't displace the other widgets, we will also subtract that amount from the bottom so the rest of the user interface does not move. All right, so to make that happen, we just need to kind of modify the way we've done our padding. So we'll do edge insets only, and we'll define each one individually. So we'll start with the top, and we have the styles that we can call on, which are list field vertical and list field horizontal. So that do the top there. I'm going to copy. I'm going to do a comma, then we'll do a copy. So we'll do the same for the bottom, and then I'll do horizontal for left and right. And let me restart that. Okay, so the top and the bottom, I think we'll just have it go straight down. So these are the two that I would like to work with. And we need to know if the button is being pressed or if it's not being pressed. And so we'd like to have a variable that we can work off of. So I'm going to convert this from a stateless to a stateful widget. And then I'm going to create a variable called pressed. So it'll be a Boolean, and it will default to false. So that makes sense. You come in here and it's unpressed, and let me restart that because we switched to a stateful widget. And so when pressed is true, that's when I want to introduce a little extra padding. And so let's add an evaluation right here to see if pressed and otherwise. So let's do, if it is pressed, let's do, space styles. Let's say like +50. And then down here, we will do, I'm just gonna copy the whole thing. And for bottom, we'll do base styles, but -50. And so then we need a way to set pressed. And so let's wrap our container with a gesture detector. So we'll wrap it with a widget and we'll make it a gesture detector. And a gesture detector has all kinds of options. And we're going to do on tap down, which I believe wants some details. Yep, tap down details. So we can put just details in there. And when you tap down, we're going to set state. And we're going to set pressed equal to the opposite of pressed. So that will just flip it. And then there's also an on tap up, which takes details. And we're just going to do the same thing. So we will toggle pressed. And on down, it's going to move. And when I let go, nothing happens because I didn't set state. So let's set state. I better reset my state because I've toggled it 5. Oh, it just fixed itself. Oh well. Down 5, up 5. That seems a little severe, so maybe 2. Yeah, that seems a little bit more appropriate. Now, rather than hard coding this 2 in here, why don't I set a base style that I can call upon? So in styles base, we'll create a double, we'll create a get, and we'll call that animation offset. And that way, if we're creating animations throughout the application, we have a variable we can call upon so that all of our offsets are similar. So back to widget button, I will replace this with a base styles animation offset, and the minus with base styles animation offset as well. All right, now we said we also wanted to play with the shadow a little bit. I mean, it's very subtle, but if you look at it, I mean, the idea that the shadow doesn't change when there is motion seems a little funny. So let's go back to styles base. And let's copy box shadow. And we'll call it box shadow pressed. And so we'll just lessen the offset a little bit and maybe shorten the blur radius. And then so if we go back to widgets and we go back to button, we can come down here to our box shadow and just say if pressed, because we don't need the parentheses there, we'll do base styles dot box shadow pressed, otherwise the box shadow. All right, so that should, if we look real close, should shorten the shadow, and it does. All right, and that's only going 2 pixels, so it doesn't look too bad, but if you really focused in on it, it does jump a little bit. And you do really have to be watching, but just to kind of complete the illusion. So we can make that a little bit smoother by changing the padding to an animated container. And everything can stay the same. We do need to add a duration for that animation. So duration, I'll put it down here right after the gesture detector, and we want a duration, and it should be pretty short because the amount of time somebody's going to have their finger on the button and come back up is not going to be great. So I'm talking milliseconds. And let's try like 100. So even that's kind of slow, it's actually quite slow. So I'm going to cut that like by a quarter. Maybe just a little bit less. All right. That looks pretty good. I might even go a little quicker. That's not bad. Really kind of imperceptible from the jump that we had before. If you really think about the subtleties of the mind and the unconscious and how it might register that, that's just going to be a little bit more natural than a jump even of 2 pixels. All right, so lastly, we can just in here, whoop, I could get rid of this. That's details, that one there, goes there. Okay, we can do an on tap method that we can then use for our login logic. So logic to do right there. So we have a working button. So now we just need to make it disabled if there are bad values in either one of these text fields. And so one of these button colors should be disabled, or else we could designate another one. But I think the light gray was actually a pretty good color for disabled. Let me try that. So let me go to login and let me just see how that looks. Yeah, that's not bad. I'm going to go to styles. No, I'm going to go to buttons. And I'm going to go into light gray. And remember how we created this custom button text dark just for the light gray, because it looked a little, it didn't look right with the light. But I think as a disabled button, it actually works. So I'm going to change that light gray text style to light, and this will be our disabled button. And I'm going to take the step of also calling it disabled. So where we have down here in our enum, we named it light gray. Let's label it disabled, and this will be our applications disabled button. And so we also need to come up here to the case and do disabled. Like that, and then if we come back to the login, there's no longer a light gray. That's fine. We want to do light blue anyway. All right, so now that we know what we want our disabled button to look like, we need a way to just communicate that to the widget tree that we want to display the disabled button. And so if you recall, in our block, our auth block, we created a variable called isValid, which looks at both of the email and the password streams and communicates whether both of those are valid. It passes true if they are, and otherwise it doesn't. So we can set up a stream builder here around our button. So let's wrap our app button with a stream builder. And the object is going to be a Boolean. And our stream is authblock.isValid. Nice and descriptive. And our button type is going to be, well, first we'll evaluate snapshot.data. And if that equals true, which I guess we could just say snapshot.data, then we're going to present light blue. And if not, then we are going to present button type disabled. Whoa. Like that. So let me stretch that out so you can see that. So app button, our button type, snapshot.data. If it is true, we'll get light blue, and if not, we will get disabled. I think we actually need to do true there. Yeah, we do. All right. Yeah, we had to do true in case there was no data. So it starts out invalid. And if I type andy@example.com and we get our password in there, then our button is now clickable. And if we go in invalid state, then our button is still clickable. So we have the look down right. Now we just need to change the behavior of the disabled button so that you can't actually click it. And we can accomplish that by going to widgets and back into our button class. And in our set state, we can just add an if widget.buttonType is not equal to button type, button type disabled, then we'll allow that press method to go down. I'm just going to copy that, stick it in front of the up button 2. And now, if the button is disabled, you can see it doesn't move at all. And if we add back in the value, this button can click. So we are good to go. Actually, let's just do, we should do a placeholder here like this. So that we remember that our button shouldn't be able to do the on-tap method either if we're using a disabled button. All right, that takes care of our text field and our buttons for the login. If we go over to sign up, it's a different story. So what we should do is go over to login, go to screens, go to login, and I just want to copy those 3 fields, the text field and the sign up button, and we're just going to paste them right into our sign up. So Stream Builder, Stream Builder, Stream Builder, grab those 3, copy them, put them in sign up, and we'll go over this, the 2 app text fields and the app button. We will bring in the auth block up top. So I'll copy that, paste it here, import both the provider and the auth block. Set up the auth block as an input. Auth block. Provide them here in page body. And that should be all set, except we just need to change login to sign up again. All right, and now the sign up should behave same way with validation, disabled button, and enabled when we get the values right, and a little bit of animation on there as well. You know, actually, before I wrap up, I'm noticing that the sign up here does not have the spacing that the login has, and I don't know if that's just my version of this, or whoop, I don't want that one, or it got into the source code. So I'm just going to take the size box 15, and I'm gonna from login, and I'm gonna copy it and put it in between the 2 app social media icons. And then we're also missing this size box 6 above and below the or, so I'm going to copy it from login and put it above that and below the or. And now they're spaced the same. Good. Just wanted to do that little bit of cleanup before we moved on. So next time we come back, now we have a button we can actually call a function at this point. It's time to talk to Firebase Authentication and use the sign up to request a new account through Firebase and start to get a response from Firebase and display that to the user. So that'll be next time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you then.